so now we're going to look at some examples. So we want to figure out the exact value of inverse sine of 1/2. And we're going to say this is equal to, I'm going to say x, where this, you know what, I was calling that y a second ago, so I'll call that y, where sine of y equals 1/2, and y is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So now think about your unit circle. Since the sine of pi over 6 is equal to 1/2, and pi over 6 is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, that means inverse sine of 1/2 is equal to pi over 6. That makes sense? Okay, next, we want to find the inverse sine of negative square root 3 over 2. So I'm going to say that's equal to y, where the sine of y is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2. And y is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So now we need to think about our unit circle and think about what value y would need to be. So remember, y is the angle. What angle has a sine equal to negative square root 3 over 2? We know it's going to be a negative angle, and it's going to be the angle negative pi over 3. So since the sine of negative pi over 3 is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2, and negative pi over 3 is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. We now know the answer. We know that the arc sine of negative square root 3 over 2 is equal to negative pi over 3. Are we ready for part C? Okay. So this one's got a little bit more complicated. We want to find the inverse sine of the sine of pi over 6. Okay, so following the order of operations, we know to do what's inside the parentheses first. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out the sine of pi over 6. So we're going to do the inverse sine. And we know the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So we need to find the inverse sine of 1/2. And we did that up above on part A. So we know the answer to that. The answer to that is just pi over 6. You might have noticed something here. We did a function, and then we did its inverse. And we came back to the original starting point of pi over 6. And that sounds very nice that we can do that. And we can do that some of the time. So the inverse sine of the sine of x is going to be equal to x, but only if x is an angle between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. And the sine of the inverse sine of x will be equal to x, but only if x is a number between -1 and +1. So let's take a look at our next example. We want to find the inverse sine of the sine of 5 pi over 12. And that is going to be equal to 5 pi over 12, since 5 pi over 12 is between -pi over 2 and pi over 2. That sound okay so far? Okay, and then the next one, you might think, well, the sine and the inverse sine are just going to cancel each other out. However, we cannot find the inverse sine of 1.03. So we're going to say that this is undefined. Right? We can't find the inverse sine of 1.03. Did anybody have any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.